What the hell do you want?
How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, that's about how I feel today. Garrett knows because I had to complain about like a work situation when I walked in the door, and that's normally not what I do.
No, you're pretty casual.
But like because my whole world came crashing down last night, and Florida State's team is total effing garbage right now.
A little bit.
And they lost to Boston College, a team that I was worried about because they should have lost to them last year.
Yes, they should have.
They were a very stupid Boston College penalty away from possibly losing the game. Now, Boston College still would have had to score, but they weren't they had the momentum.
Yes, they did.
They had the momentum. And Thomas Castellanos, who FSU offered as an athlete out of high school, he went to UCF, then he transferred to Boston College, seems to have his best moments. Now, I want you to really think about that offense last night they ran, and I'm going to get into DJU in a minute. They didn't run anything really to the outsides. They ran straight up the middle.
Yes.
So 2 weeks in a row, straight up the middle, which was supposed to be a strength of this team. We were told that. Well, it's the second biggest weakness. Now, they have in both games figured out enough to where if they had any kind of production on offense or were doing it correctly, then it would not be as big of a problem in games like this. But my God, this is bad. This is really bad. Now, I'm trying not to overreact, but you shouldn't be 0-2 coming off of 13-0 or 13-1, whatever you want to say. But it feels to me that since December 5th of last year, the air has completely come out of the balloon. And they have so many ghosts that they're dealing with. They're making, not their own making, but it's a lot. And the biggest problem out of all this, though, is that they did the thing that every coach everywhere does. And you knew it's going to happen sometime. I can fix him. I can fix him. No, you can't. He's broken. You cannot fix DJU at this point.
You can't. And my thing is, if you know what you're wanting to run, what style of play you're wanting to do, and that's your bread and butter, and you've proven that you've had success playing this way, why you would go and pursue a quarterback who doesn't fit your scheme like that. That's what it's the disconnect with me. And I know, and you'll be the first one to tell you, Cam Ward was the first guy everybody wanted. He was y'all's number one guy, and he would have been the ideal fit for this. But when you miss on Cam Ward, you've got to do a better job of pivoting and finding somebody close to that. Now, it's difficult because Cam Ward's elite.
No,
but you've got to be able to find somebody who can. Castellanos would have been the perfect fit. I know he wasn't in the portal, but
Thomas Castellanos would have been what they need. They would win. They would win more games with many other quarterbacks than they would DJU. And we're going to play that game in a minute, but we'll skip. When you get to that, we'll just skip Cam Ward right off the bat because everybody would want it. They wanted him. It was them in Miami and them in Miami, and then ultimately it was Miami. Now, was that a bigger NIL bag, or was that he felt it was a better fit? Doesn't matter. They didn't get him.
Yeah.
Now they need to figure out the reason they didn't get him and figure out if it's something that they could have done better or if it was just and look, I agree with drawing a line in the sand of what you're going to pay for a 1-year quarterback, right? So you do have to draw a line in the sand for that. And maybe that was it. If that's it and he went it doesn't matter really why to the outside world they didn't get him. They just didn't get him. Internally, they need to make sure that look, if you're going to push your chips in the middle of the table, and I know this is your offense, Mike Norvell, and you want to call this, but part of the other problem is that it's like he has not accepted who DJU is. And they're not running plays to protect DJU from himself. Like Oregon State and Jonathan Smith did. So this is a really good time for them to have that early bye week and get back into they're paying. Here's the other thing. Those defensive tackles, Joshua Farmer, Daryl Jackson came in last year, was got caught up in like he was one of the guys that transferred before they changed the rule. Then they did, like he's one of the lawsuit winners, but he still lost a whole year of playing. But he's part of the problem. But Derek Farmer was one of the guys, and Patrick Payton's with the other one. There were like 3 guys, DJ Lundy, that all got in the portal. DJ Lundy even committed to Colorado, and then they went and upped the money and brought him back. Well, you got to play better. If you go and pull that stunt, I think you owe it to the team to come back and say, yeah, well,
prove your worth.
You get it, but if I'm a guy who's behind him on the depth chart, watching him make more money than me and get run over, like that's going to create divisions, and that's the thing. So yeah, FSU season ostensibly to me is over, even though I know it's not. But this is not a team I can see right now, this moment, winning the next 10 games in a row, given their schedule is Memphis and Clemson and Duke and North Carolina and Miami and admittedly a bad Florida team, but like they've got this is a tough schedule. Now, last year, this team, granted they didn't beat Boston College by that much, but you take the team last year, put them in Ireland, and then put them at home against Boston College. It's 2-0, and we're not even thinking about it. But they lost a lot, and it's evident. And there are a lot of things that in the top 5 today is going to be talking about how them and Clemson are kind of almost in the exact same boat. Sometimes for different reasons, but it's like they're both this year at least doing half of what they need to do.
Right.
And one is doing one half and the other's doing the other half. I'll just give you a little preview, like roster building. Dabo Swinney's still one of the best high school recruiters in the country, but he won't pepper it up with transfers to help out for those ones that he misses, because everybody misses on one, or guys get hurt. They can't play anymore. They flunk out of school. There's all those things. Mike Norvell is not very good at high school recruiting compared to Dabo Swinney. He's on the top 12 to 15 classes. Well, they're getting top 5 classes. So FSU needs to start getting a top 5 recruiting class, top 10 recruiting class, and a top 5 to 10 transfer class. And that's where I think you've got to go moving forward. For example, Lane Kiffin, by far number 1 transfer class this year, but also had like the number 7 or 8 high school class. Got a
balance to it.
So it balances out. But when you have this high of the high school or this high of the high school and here or vice versa, you're going to have problems. You've got to build if you're going to build a roster like a pro team, you can't do it all one way or the other. I'll tell you, the Cowboys are like this, right? The Cowboys don't really make trades, all that. Like they've made a couple minor ones, but they don't go for that, like the big thing that could be an X factor trade.
Yeah,
that's where I think people get confused about, Cowboy fans, I don't want them to go full sail into free agency. That's what the Browns do. I don't want them to do that. I want the Cowboys to, when they're in position to make a move, like the 49ers do or the Eagles do, where, you know what, we think that we're close, we're going to go get this guy and get over the top.
Yeah.
They'll do that. The Cowboys won't. And that's where the problem is. Now, the other end of that spectrum is the teams like the Browns, who just we have $80 million in cap room because none of our draft picks get to their second contract because most of them suck. So we're going to go spend $80 million in cap room. And the same thing happens over and over again. The same thing will happen in college where, you could be like Dabo and only 1 high school kids. And you're wondering well, why am I not quite as good? Well, yeah, because you've got older veteran guys that are ready to step in and play key positions when teams have, you can fill a hole quicker. Now, you shouldn't fill all the holes with that, or that should be the top layer, but the bottom layer that's going to be the stability is the kids you're going to develop and bring through your program. And part of this is the world of NIL, and all this will probably balance out in the future roster-wise, where it's going to be easier for everybody to work it. But right now, when you can go in the portal whenever you want, you have to recruit your own roster all the time, and you can't really focus on development as much as you did in the past. This is going to happen. And Mike Norvell hit it out of the park with so many of those guys, when you talk about the guys that he put in the program now, Jordan Travis was not his transfer, but he coached him up well.
Correct.
But every single transfer that he brought in before was not like DJU. These were not 5-star guys who were on their last spot. These were guys who, even though they might have been like in Oregon, like a Trey Benson, or Georgia, like Jermaine Johnson, were a little bit blocked and needed a place to shine. So Jermaine Johnson, huge pickup for them, and what wound up being a first-round draft pick. Would not probably have been a first-round draft pick at Georgia, not because he wasn't that good, but because they had 4 defensive ends, and like he was just kind of in the rotation. So he comes to Florida State and he has double-digit sacks. You're like, oh, well, this guy's a stud. That was that situation. Jared Verse was at Albany.
Yes.
Braden Fisk was at Western Michigan.
See, those are the transfers that, like, as everything's unfolded, and like from my perspective, we'll really focus on LSU, but looking at it as general, I think that there's more upside with those players that transfer up because you have something more to prove. I'm more comfortable with programs who evaluate that way, and when they add the transfers, it's guys who are making that step up rather than you do like the TCU approach to last year where you go and get all these names and everything out of the portal from Alabama and these bigger programs, and they just don't hit because they've maxed out their potential, and just because you were a 5-star in high school and you didn't pan out, like to me, you got to be cautious with it. So when I'm looking at it, I'm more inclined to believe in a player coming from a smaller school, making a jump up than a player that's like on his second Power 5 program, because there's a reason you're not clicking and hitting at these places because you wouldn't be in the portal at this point. So that's kind of where I'm at with looking at what you're dealing with Florida State, because the players they brought in weren't that. They weren't the people that were hungry and looking for an opportunity to better themselves and make that next push to the league. It's just guys that were there. And I don't know if that's kind of indicative on misevaluating players, and not just from a coach's perspective, because we've seen it all offseason. Like, and we talk about PFF and their grading system and how that can be skewed or it's different, but there were so many players, whether it was quarterbacks or these interior linemen, who were judged that they were supposed to come out and make these extra leaps and position themselves to be high draft picks. And it is vastly like missing across the board. There have been so many people who aren't living up to the expectations. And I don't know if that's you get a bag and you kind of feel like you don't need to put in that extra work, or you just have been you've maxed out your potential and you've been in college so long that there's just nothing else you can do. But there's a weird balancing act here that teams are going to have to figure out pretty quick, or you're going to see a lot more Florida State situations unfolding across the nation.
Yeah. I mean, I have faith that Mike Norvell is smart enough to get this fixed. He's very good at identifying specific problems that they have, but he fell into a trap here about that every coach falls into with a 5-star guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was the number 2 prospect. Number 1 was Bryce Young. Number 3 was CJ Stroud.
But both of them have been in the league and
balling. Both of those have already now been in the league.
There's the difference.
One of them won a Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
One of them probably would have won the Heisman Trophy should the other one not have existed, right?
Right.
Those kind of things. Like it, even though CJ Stroud's numbers at Ohio State weren't like gaudy, he was just so damn good. Like you knew he
so
was
much
good.
Talent around him too. Like,
yeah, I mean, so it was like, yeah, he fell in it, and if they wind up having to play Brock Glenn or Luke Kromenuk this year, then that's it. I mean, it's already like 0-2. It's already a waste of money. They've already wasted the money they spent on DJU.
That's what I was wondering last night, dude. Like at some point, like in the third or fourth quarter, I was like, do you leave him out there? Is this a financial obligation?
What is that like? It tells me I'm maybe worried about the other quarterbacks.
But was Brock Glenn the one that came in last year?
Yeah,
he looked pretty good though. Like why? I
don't know. I mean, he was so overmatched,
but he wasn't. It was like
Rodemaker looked fine against Florida late. Like I think he got his had Tate Rodemaker, who's now at Southern Miss, had he
maybe
not
he's the one
gotten hurt in the Florida game. I think if Tate Rodemaker hadn't gotten hurt and played against Louisville, and then they had scored points against Louisville, maybe the Jordan Travis broken leg thing doesn't come into play as much. But them being on the third quarterback who did nothing against Louisville, all night long. And then, you saw what happened when all the starters left against Georgia. It's a problem. But They legitimately and here's what I'll tell you: the defense was a problem last night, but the defense only gave up 21 points in my estimation. That near pick six and going in from the 11-yard line, or that they went. That was a horrible first of all, horrible coaching decision early in the third quarter. When you're only down, at that point, they were only down a score. It was 14-6 to go for it. With 13 minutes left to go in the third quarter, behind the 50, when you've got a quarterback who couldn't hit shit if he fell in the toilet, what are you doing? That was, to me, a really, really bad decision that really, really probably broke DJU a little bit more than he was already broken. So why are you even doing this? And also, your defense couldn't keep him off the field in the first half, but part of that, or in the first quarter, part of that was they had 2 3 and outs. They didn't run the ball. Run the ball. What are you doing? You're trying to run. I got it. They're trying to run the offense that was so prolific last year, but no Jordan Travis, no Keon Coleman, no Johnny Wilson, no Jaheim Bill, no Trey Benson. Now, do they have playmakers that could be that? I don't know. You know why I don't know? Because the quarterback can't get the ball to them.
So my thing is and I get where you're coming from with the Boston College only scoring 28 points, but man, they didn't need to score. They dominate. They realized.
That
was some NFL.
Thinking of week over week, the defense gave up 21 and 24. That's manageable, even though the defense isn't good. If you can keep giving up 21 and 24 in modern college football, that's manageable. It's not great, but it's manageable, right?
Right.
But when the offense spots them another 7, and then the offense cannot do anything, then you can't do that. You can't, you can't be reverse Iowa. They're not good at either side of the ball right now, but you can't be bad at both. And I say the outside, they bought that wheel route every time Trayshawn Ward, who used to be on their team, ran it. It played well for them. It just, again, he was blocked because they had Trey Benson and Toafili and all these other guys. You get it, but
he didn't do much at Kansas State. It's not like he's
no, I know, but he he was again fired up last night.
Yeah,
and then they didn't do anything to stop him. So it was bizarre. I thought that Norvell was kind of past all that, and that they were in a point where they could run, roll out there, be fundamental and do that. And if you remember when we talked to people who cover FSU, it's I expect to see the big plays down a little bit, but this should be a run-first offense. They have the whole offensive line back. They're deep at that position, and they should run the ball and protect DJU more. But that's not, in the 2 games, that's not what they've done at all. As a matter of fact, the first drive, the most successful offensive possession they had all year was the first drive last week in Ireland.
They looked damn good.
They looked fantastic. Went right down the field, and guess what happened on that drive? DJU threw 2 passes, short little planned, flare-outs, and the rest of the time was running backs. So what are you doing?
At this point, though, what can you realistically change if you're Florida State? Because DJU's proven he can't stretch the field. There's no reason any team on their schedule should fear DJU being able to spread the field. So if you load the box, they've proven they've struggled.
He's not fast enough to run out of it.
Offensively right now, if you're Florida State.
You can't, that's why I think you got to open it up. I think that you have to open it up. Brock Glenn and Luke Kromenhoek have to be options for you. And if they're not, then do they need to be on the roster next year either?
No.
That's my thing. If they can't help you at least be a little bit better now, and I actually think that they can be.
It can't get much worse.
That was bad last night. That was bad. So much so that why not, when it's 14-6 after halftime and he's been bad, roll out Brock Glenn.
That's my question. Run
the ball, get him in a rhythm and see what he does. Give him a couple shots to do things and see it go. There's something else going on there that we're not completely aware of. All right, we're going to take a break here, and Garrett is going to list 10. Did you have 10 quarterbacks?
Yeah, 10 that I've watched, 9 or 10 that I've watched this season.
9 or 10 that he's watched. These are all transfer quarterbacks.
Most of them, yes.
Most of them are transfer quarterbacks.
Yes.
Okay. Of who would you rather have than DJU? We're going to play that